The grove of Jetavana was serene, filled with the fragrance of blossoming jasmine under the golden afternoon sun. Monks gathered silently, anticipating the wisdom of the enlightened one. Buddha sat calmly under the shade of the Bodhi tree, his presence radiating profound tranquility. His eyes swept gently over the assembly, observing their eager expressions and attentive posture. After a pause, Buddha spoke, his voice carrying the depth of an ocean and the clarity of a mountain spring. "Brothers," he began, "every journey begins with a single step, and every step carves the path of awakening." The disciples leaned in closer, their breath held as his words resonated through their hearts. Once there was a man who sought to build a home but ignored the foundation beneath, Buddha continued solemnly. He worked tirelessly, constructing walls and a roof without thought for what lay below. His gaze fixed momentarily on the eldest monk, reflecting both patience and sorrow. The rains came, fierce and unrelenting, washing away his effort until only debris remained. Buddha concluded. "Why did he fail?" A younger disciple, trembling slightly, responded cautiously. "Master." The man lacked wisdom to see the importance of the unseen foundation. Buddha nodded. In the same way, Buddha elaborated, "We must lay the foundation of our minds before seeking the fruits of wisdom. Remove anger, jealousy, and ignorance as a builder clears stones and weeds from fertile ground," he instructed. Gesturing toward the earth, the disciples nodded, absorbing the metaphor with silent reflection. And Buddha continued to weave his narrative like threads in a tapestry. The young monk nodded uncertainly, his brow furrowing in thought. "Yes, Master, but what has this pot to teach of vulnerability?" Buddha smiled faintly, his voice calm and steady like a river. The assembly sat quietly, their thoughts flickering as candles in the wind, reflecting deeply on his teachings. Buddha pointed to the nearby banyan tree, its roots sprawling like an intricate web connecting life to earth. "Like this tree," he explained, "your actions, nourished by right intention, create a steady foundation of strength and resilience." Suddenly, a villager approached the assembly, carrying a torn sack of grain and tears streaming down his face. The man bowed low before Buddha and cried, "Master, my crops have failed, and I fear my family will starve." Buddha raised his hand gently, inviting the man to speak his anguish. The villager continued with trembling voice, "I labored day and night, yet drought scorched my land. What have I done wrong, Master?" Buddha regarded the man compassionately and then spoke softly, "Brother, let your failure teach you wisdom rather than despair." He paused and turned to address both the villager and his disciples together, emphasizing the universality of struggle. "There is no harvest without cultivation. There is no cultivation without preparation. Reflect deeply on the seasons, the soil, and yourself." Buddha's gaze rested on the speaker briefly, wisdom glinting in his eyes. "Indeed, yet within brokenness lies an unseen possibility for transformation," he replied softly. Buddha gestured toward the fertile field in the distance where grain swayed beneath the gentle breeze. "Prepare your soil with care, clearing obstacles and nourishing the ground, and the seed will bear fruit." Turning his gaze back to the assembly, Buddha said, "Understand this: the effort you invest determines the clarity and wisdom that will rise within you. Spiritual maturity begins by accepting the impermanence of failure and trusting the cycle of renewal," he emphasized. "Through mindfulness, even the act of eating becomes a sanctuary for the restless soul to find solace," the Buddha said. Quietly, the disciple smiled, hope replacing the shadows that had lingered in his eyes like transient clouds obscuring a mountain's peak. Persistence is nurtured by unwavering faith, like a flame shielded from wind. The assembly grew silent once again, their gazes fixed on the Buddha as if his words illuminated their souls. In learning the rhythm of life, we learn patience. In patience, we find peace, Buddha concluded. Hours passed as the sun dipped lower into the horizon, but the teachings remained etched deeply in every heart. Buddha addressed his disciples one last time that evening, and the sincerity of his voice pierced the air. The path to spiritual maturity begins with quiet intention, gentle persistence, and reflective wisdom. Let each step guide the next, Buddha said. His disciples bowed low, their hearts filled with gratitude and enlightenment. The villager too expressed his thanks and vowed to return to his fields renewed with understanding and hope. Buddha nodded as shadows of the banyan tree lengthened, enveloping the grove in calmness and harmony. And thus, the sacred teachings of the Enlightened One continued to resonate through lives, shaping them silently with timeless wisdom. Another day, another opportunity unfolded as the Buddha walked serenely toward the lakeside, disciples gathering around him in silence. The lake shimmered in the soft light of dawn, its surface still as if mirroring the infinite sky. Birds sang gently from the surrounding trees, their melodies weaving into the quiet of the morning. Buddha paused and turned to his disciples, his presence commanding yet compassionate. Observe this lake, Buddha said, his voice calm as flowing water. It is pure and peaceful, undisturbed by external commotion. One disciple questioned, if reflection is clouded, how do we know whether what we see is truth or illusion? The Buddha turned to him, compassion glimmering in his eyes like starlight weaving through the night's expanse. Truth exists not in perfection but in the acceptance of imperfections as integral to life's beauty, he said calmly. Buddha nodded, emphasizing the lesson in motion. As the ripples expand, Buddha explained, they stir the entire surface, creating chaos where once there was stillness. The disciples exchanged glances, realizing the parallel between the lake and their minds, which often succumb to unrest. Do not let anger be your stone, Buddha continued gently, his words reaching their hearts like falling petals. Anger stirs not only your heart but disrupts harmony around you, leaving turmoil in its wake. One disciple spoke nervously, asking, Master, how do we prevent the stone from being cast into our minds? Buddha turned toward him, his gaze like the reflection of stars on the water. Fill your mind with compassion. As the lake fills with clarity, Buddha replied, compassion shields the surface from destructive ripples. He gestured toward the villagers approaching, their quarrel carried on the breeze. The two villagers stopped before the assembly, their faces marked by anger and frustration. Mindfulness is not about perfection. It is the act of embracing the raw, unfiltered truth without fear or resistance, he said. The Buddha leaned closer to the pond, his movements slow, deliberate, as though time itself lingered out of respect for wisdom. He dipped his fingers into the water, creating ripples that spread outward, touching the bank, the disciples, the universe itself. Each ripple reflects intention. Each bite echoes your inner resolve. Harmony is born when reflection and resolve align, he explained. Then he asked, what binds you to this anger? And what prevents you from seeking reconciliation? The villagers fell silent, struggling to answer the profound question. Buddha turned to the lake and said, reflect on the ripples. They do not stop until the stone is removed. He bent down and picked up a lotus flower, holding it gently in his hands. But here, see the lotus, it blooms untouched. Above the disturbance below, the disciples watched intently, understanding that the lotus symbolized the essence of compassion rising above conflict. To develop spiritual maturity, one must let the waters of compassion flow freely within, Buddha said. Buddha turned back to the villagers, his voice kind and steady. Instead of anger, extend forgiveness. Instead of discord, offer understanding. The villagers lowered their gazes, shame washing over their hardened expressions. My friends, Buddha continued, Reconciliation is not weakness. It is the strongest act, for it creates peace in the wake of turmoil. The first villager hesitated before saying, "Master, I forgive his actions. But how do I ensure fairness?" "Fairness arises from mutual compassion and honesty," Buddha replied. "Let your hearts seek balance rather than victory, and fairness will follow." The second villager spoke next. "I regret my part in this. Let us find peace in restoring harmony." Buddha smiled faintly, his compassion evident as the villagers expressed their gratitude and reconciled before the assembly. Remember, mindful eating is not merely nourishment but the cultivation of clarity, compassion, and understanding within yourself, he concluded. The disciples reflected on his teachings, their thoughts rippling outward, like the pond embracing each stone dropped into its depths. Compassion is as endless as the sky, Buddha said, expanding with every act, yet it remains unseen by the boundless mind. To embody compassion is to remove barriers, allowing it to flow freely through all paths of existence, he added. Buddha gestured toward the lake, now undisturbed and serene once again, mirroring the clarity of a peaceful heart. Let this lake remind you of your true nature, which rests in calmness and clarity beneath the surface of life. Buddha raised the lotus in his hand once more, as if to emphasize the delicate balance of harmony. As the lotus blooms unstained above the water, so must you rise above anger. Through compassion's embrace, this stone carries the marks of its journey, shaped not in isolation but through constant interaction with the water, he said. In mindful eating, each bite carries the potential to ripple outward, touching lives beyond your own, the Buddha continued thoughtfully. Buddha turned back to the disciples, his voice addressing not their questions but their unspoken thoughts. Peace is not found in the absence of conflict, but in the presence of compassion rising above its depths, Buddha said. And so the teachings continued, carving silent ripples through the minds of those gathered, shaping their hearts forever. Another day, another gathering brought the disciples to the shade of the Bodhi tree, where Buddha sat in serene silence. The rainy season had ended, leaving the earth fresh and lush, as if washed anew by life's cyclical rhythm. Buddha's gaze rested on a single lotus flower blooming undisturbed among the reeds near a shallow pond. He spoke, his voice calm yet carrying immense depth. "Do you see this lotus? It rises above the muck below." The disciples leaned in closely, their attention captivated by the symbolism offered in Buddha's soft gesture toward the flower. As the lotus remains unstained, so must your mind rise above desires, fears, and distractions that darken the spirit, Buddha said. Equanimity is the balance between acceptance and clarity, allowing one to observe without clinging or rejecting, he continued. "I wish to bloom as the lotus does," she said earnestly. Buddha placed a hand lightly on her shoulder, his touch radiating comfort and strength in equal measure. Joy, sorrow, success, and failure, they ebb and flow, impermanent like clouds drifting across the sky. Buddha gestured upward, his hand tracing the graceful motion of clouds dissolving in the open expanse above. To cling to these moments is to sink into the mud, Buddha explained. To let them pass is to rise above. His disciples bowed their heads in silent thought, reflecting deeply on the teachings shared through the simple image of a lotus. Equanimity is not indifference, Buddha emphasized. It is the loving balance of an open heart and a clear mind amidst impermanence. Buddha's words settled over the assembly like dew upon leaves, absorbed quietly and without resistance. He gestured toward the pond again and continued. The lotus begins in darkness but emerges in light, unblemished by its humble beginnings. One elder disciple spoke cautiously, asking, "Master, how do we remain unwavering when pain burdens the spirit?" Buddha paused before answering, his words deliberate and profound. Pain teaches resilience when embraced without resistance. Like roots anchoring the lotus in uncertain waters. He turned toward a nearby tree and touched its bark, emphasizing its enduring strength despite stormy weather. Resilience is born from understanding that all is transient, Buddha said. Do not fear pain. Let it strengthen your roots. A villager approached, tears staining his face, and bowed low before Buddha, seeking solace amidst grief. The man spoke with trembling voice. Master, I have lost my son. Sorrow consumes me and leaves me unable to continue. His disciples bowed deeply, their hearts carrying his words like vessels of wisdom flowing into the infinite sea of existence. The river continued its journey, its waters merging with the universe, carrying the Buddha's teachings as silent ripples of truth. Your grief reflects the love you shared with your son. Let that love guide your heart toward understanding, Buddha said. He gestured toward the pond, where ripples began to fade, restoring clarity to the once disturbed waters. Allow your sorrow to rise like this lotus, above the darkness below, finding strength in its acceptance. The villager blinked through his tears, his heart beginning to absorb the wisdom concealed within Buddha's teachings. Buddha continued, speaking both to the man and to his disciples. Equanimity does not eliminate sorrow, but it transforms it into an enduring clarity and compassion. The villager expressed his gratitude, bowing low once again before returning to his home with renewed peace in his heart. Buddha addressed his disciples, emphasizing the universality of equanimity across life's joys and sorrows. Spiritual maturity is the union of equanimity, compassion, and wisdom, blooming as one like petals of the same lotus flower. Buddha lifted the lotus gently and observed its beauty, its significance emanating across the gathering of disciples. Do not fear the impermanence of moments, for they are threads weaving the infinite tapestry of life, Buddha concluded. The disciples bowed deeply, their hearts ignited with clarity and purpose, their spirits uplifted by his teachings. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the grove in hues of amber and gold, and enveloping it in serenity. Buddha rose slowly, his robes flowing gently like the breeze, and began to walk toward the distant hills. The disciples followed quietly, their minds reflecting on the essence of equanimity and the wisdom gifted by the Enlightened One. Thus, the teachings illuminated the path of awakening, shaping lives with profound serenity and timeless balance. The disciples sat in thoughtful silence, their hearts attuned to the profound simplicity of his teaching. Buddha bent down, scooping a handful of water from the river, watching it drip between his fingers. Thank you for watching. Buddha's teachings are always with you. Subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next video.